All right, let's see if I'm live. Okay, it says I am live. All right, cool. All right, let's get started. Looks like I'm live. I'm verifying on my own phone. All right, let's get the notes out. Where is it? Okay. All right, so this video is going to be about how to pick a mesh system or a router. I get a lot of common questions, so I kind of want to make a video on just a general, because when I answer, sometimes it's like specific questions. I try to answer it as detailed as possible. Sometimes I'm not as detailed. Sometimes I'm very detailed, and I figured it's typically a good idea if I just make a video just to give you guys a glimpse of what would be good. Okay, so I have a bunch of mesh systems here and some routers, and really a mesh system is, I should say, standalone routers. So I have the ASUS router right here. I have the Nighthawk RS200. I think this was the RTB86U that I just reviewed. There's a lot of model numbers, so sometimes I get them mixed up. And then these are mesh systems that I got: the ASUS BT10, the Orbi 770, and the Eero 6 Plus right here. And I got the Deco XE70 Pro. So, all right. So the first question you should ask yourself is, how fast are your internet speeds? So sometimes I get questions like, okay, like I want to spend, let's say, $500. For example, um, which router is good for me, or which router should I get? Or sometimes I get general questions like, oh, what's a good router for gigabit internet speeds? And really, there's more to it than that. And I try to answer, and then sometimes my answers are a little more detailed. Sometimes I just want to say like this model number is good, but really we need to look at like really um, two or three key things. So basically, how fast are your internet speeds? How big is your place? This is a big one because if you're living in a mansion, I'm going to recommend something different than if you're living in a normal house, like myself. So I don't need something, crazy big with an absurd amount of range. So it depends how big your place is. So it really helps if you say my internet speeds are, let's say, 500 megabits per second download. I live in a 2,000 square foot place. And then the next one is obviously if you want to pick a mesh system. So if you live in a bigger house, I would typically recommend a mesh system. If you live in a smaller place, let's say like, and it also matters if it's centrally placed or not. So if you have a router that's, if you have your house, like let's say if we're doing a top view of your house and your router is like directly in the center, you probably don't even need a mesh system, assuming your house isn't massive. But if you have a house, again, top view, and let's say your router is like right here, and when you're in this room, you're not really getting those speeds anymore, that's when I'm like, okay, you should probably look at a mesh system. And then when we get into mesh systems, I'm sure most of you guys know, but basically it's like two or more devices. So like this ASUS BT10 combo. Both of these are actually individually routers, but in the same network, the one hooked up to your modem acts as the router, and this one acts kind of like an extender. But because it's a mesh system, it's comboed with each other, and usually you get much better speeds that way. Because when you're walking with your Wi-Fi device, when you're closer to this one, it switches you here, and then you get closer to the other room, it switches you here automatically. It's not like, oh, you need to go change your SSID, which is your Wi-Fi name. Like, I'm closer to this one, let me switch over. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. You literally walk, you connect to the same SSID, it switches you over, and you're golden. So that's basically a mesh system, two or more devices. Sometimes it's a 3-pack, and you can even buy a 3-pack and then buy an additional one and make it a 4 pack as well. With most of them, I think with pretty much all of them that I've reviewed, it's like that. But then after like 5 or 6, there is like an upper limit, and it's never, I'm not gonna say never, but it's not really specified. But usually you don't want to pass 5 or 6. That's really like, because then it starts to degrade as well. Um, and then if you're running a mesh system, you also need to know if you're, another question I ask is, are you going to do wired versus wireless backhaul? And wired is another way of saying Ethernet backhaul, which basically means this guy has an Ethernet cable making its way to this guy. So that would be a wired backhaul. Or if this one's just powered on, let's say 20 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet away, and it's wirelessly talking to this one, then that's a wireless backhaul. So that there's a big price discrepancy if you want really good speeds on wireless backhaul. That's when I typically like to recommend the bigger, more powerful mesh systems. Like the Wi-Fi 7 ones are really, really good. In fact, I do videos on this where I'm next to my TV and I basically do a wireless backhaul test, and I show you guys like how fast these things can actually go even on wireless backhaul, and it's absurd. So, and then, finally, like, how much do you want to spend? What's your budget? Okay, I got some. Hello from Kentucky. Hello, Glock 40 boy. Good night. Yeah, this video will be saved. I'm paying $5 for AT&T for Wi-Fi booster. I guess it's a mesh system. Who do I replace in? Yeah, so that's another good point. Some of the companies, ISP, internet service providers, they're like, you could pay $5 more or $10 more and we'll give you an extender. It's like, you don't actually, I mean, you could do that, but you could also just get your own mesh system and then not do that. And then basically just call your company and give it back. Okay. All right. So back to, so basically that's the main criteria. So now let's try to kind of answer those questions. So that's really like how fast your internet speeds are, how big is your place. If it's big enough, if you want a mesh system, are you going to do wired or wireless backhaul? And like how much do you want to spend? But typically, you might want to spend, $300 and then be like, okay, for $300, this is pretty good. But really, like, you might need the $700 one if that's kind of the performance you're looking for, kind of thing. So there's that as well. So, okay. So how fast are your internet speeds? So if you're gigabit and under, if you have like 500 megabits per second or whatever, you have a lot of choices. There are like I can't think of a router that I've reviewed that doesn't have at least a gigabit port, which is really good because you have a lot of choices. It doesn't have to be as expensive. Next is how big is your place. So if you're centrally located, I would just say just get a standalone router. You don't need a mesh system. So you could get like this ASUS right here. Or you could get like this Netgear Nighthawk, or you could get a TP-Link Archer router. I mean, there's a lot of choices basically with that. Let's say if you're getting a standalone router, let's say I say, okay, this ASUS is really good. Well, this ASUS has a 10 gigabit port. However, all the other ports are 2.5 gigabits. So even if your internet speeds, and we're talking about gigabit speeds, so these are all up to speed. So when it comes in at gigabit, this can handle up to 10 gigabit in theory. So you're good. You're going to be getting your full speeds. You got the antennas. Antenna placement does actually matter. You can actually get better speeds if you play with the antennas a little bit. And and this should actually be really good. And ASUS, and we'll get into features a little bit later as well. But ASUS has a ton of features, and they're all included in the price. So some of these you actually have to pay additional features. You have to pay additional subscription if you want those additional features. They're optional, but if you want to use them, it does require a subscription. Okay, so that's the standalone router. You can also get like a Nighthawk. This thing I mean, both of these are actually really good. I recently reviewed this. I think this was the last one that I reviewed, and I'm reviewing the bigger brother of this. But basically, this is another one where you don't need to update the antennas because it's kind of built in, so you don't need to maneuver it. You just place it and you're good to go. However, the problem with Nighthawk is that if you want parental controls, this thing just has like a pause and an unpause, and that's it. If you want more additional parental controls, like setting time limits and things like that, that does require a separate subscription. Whereas with ASUS, it's included in the price. So something to keep in mind, basically. All right, water break. When I'm normally filming, I take a lot of water breaks. I cut that out, or if I'm switching between cameras, I cut that out, but it's hard to do when you're live. All right, so awesome guy at 77 says, love my TP-Link, but my Deco XE75 has issues with first port not working, shaking my head. Really? That's interesting. I live in a small apartment. Can I get one TP? Yeah, you can. Or should you get a regular router? If you plan on expanding, get the mesh system. But if you're gonna get a router just to get a single router, I would probably just get the standalone router. So if you like TP-Link, just get their Archer. I would probably do that. Is it fine to get the BE10000 Wi-Fi 7 one? Yeah, it's fine. It'll work just fine. And that's the other thing. Like, just because it's a mesh system, like, you can actually buy just a one pack of a mesh system, which technically is no longer a mesh system, but you could use this by itself. So you don't, if you get a 2-pack, you could just use this one by itself. But I typically recommend that if you're going to, like, if you're planning on expanding later on, then it's good to do that. If you're not, I'm like, just get the regular router. Like, if you like TP-Link, Archer is, that's their Archer brand, basically. Okay, so mesh system, standalone. Okay, so now let's talk about how big is your place. Let's say your place is like 2,000 square feet, and I don't know what that is in square meters, but we could probably do the conversion. But so if you have like 2,000 square feet or 3,000 square feet, I start recommending mesh systems. Honestly, like above 1,500, I'm like, okay, maybe you should look at a mesh system. Closer to 2,000, I'm like, yeah, you should probably get a mesh system. And then, bigger than that, definitely a mesh system. And so then the next question is, are you doing wired or wireless backhaul? So if you're doing wired, you could save a lot of money. So this Eero 6 Plus is a mesh system that offers really good speeds, assuming you wire them together. If you don't wire them together, it's not going to be that great on the secondary node. More water breaks. So on the secondary node, it's not going to be as fast because this is a dual band system. So it has the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz band, and the speed rating is not that fast. I think it's been a while since I've done this one, but I think this one was like AX3000, I think. I'm not 100% right now. But basically, this is relatively inexpensive, and you're going to get really good speeds out of this. But again, with Eero, I said it with Netgear, but with Eero, if you want parental controls, that actually does require a separate subscription. So keep that in mind as well. So, but if you're, if you want to basically, if you're going to do wired backhaul, that's a really good choice. The Decos are also a really good choice. Decos are usually really good price per performance. Like, for what you're getting for the price, it's hard to beat. But you could get like a Deco XE70 Pro. You could get a Deco XE75. You could get a Deco X55. So you have a lot of choices with the Decos. And I recently reviewed the Deco BE25, which is another really good choice for wired backhaul. For wireless backhaul, you want something a little more powerful. The XE70 Pro is not bad for wireless backhaul. It actually gets gives you pretty good speeds at the secondary node. And I should explain this as well. The main one hooked up to your modem that's acting as the router, this one's always going to get you good speeds. Like, as long as, it should get you to your internet speeds, basically, assuming the port can handle it, assuming your device can handle it, it should get you to those advertised speeds. The secondary ones are the ones that don't do quite as well. So for wireless backhaul. Granted, the XC70 Pro is actually not too bad. It actually does a pretty good job of doing wireless backhaul speeds. Now, if you want something beefier that does better wireless backhaul speeds, that's when I start recommending the Wi-Fi 7 mesh systems like the ASUS BT10, the Orbi 770. These are two really good mesh systems. The Deco BE63, which is somewhere over there, that's another really good one. Those are really good mesh systems that's going to give you really good speeds on the secondary nodes. Now, the advantage of the Wi-Fi 7 ones, like this ASUS BT10, cost more, but this thing's beastie. Like, it's really genuinely fast. First of all, you have two 10 gig ports on this thing. So my internet speeds are 5 gigs up and down. So I can actually use this and I'll get my full 5 gig speeds out of it over Ethernet. And over Wi-Fi, I'll still get really good speeds because this thing has a really fast speed rating. I think it was like BE 18,000 or something. And then the wireless backhaul speeds on this is absurdly good. And the crazy part is that if you're doing wireless backhaul, I've done a separate video on this on the ASUS BT10. In fact, I think I've done it on probably all the Wi-Fi 7 mesh systems that I've tested, or most of them. But basically, you can, even though this is, let's say this is your main router and this one is acting as the extender or the node or the satellite or the access point, basically, you know, increasing your Wi-Fi coverage throughout your home, you can actually use these Ethernet ports, even though this is wirelessly talking this one. And if you use these Ethernet ports, you can actually get faster speeds, assuming your device can handle it. And that's kind of what I test. So I show that with my Mac Mini because my Mac Mini has Wi-Fi 6E, but it has a 10 gig port. And when I hook it up and I do that test while it's on wireless backhaul, I show you guys it's crazy fast if you hook it up via Ethernet. So that's another thing with Wi-Fi 7 devices. Not only is their wireless backhaul really fast, it's also very, very good if you hook it up via Ethernet. So that's like another big advantage you get with Wi-Fi 7. Also, it can handle internet speeds faster than gigabit. This one can go up to 10 gigs. The Orbi 770, I think it's up to 2.5 gigs. So yeah, so this one's up to 2.5 gigs. So it just depends. And I mean, there's like a lot of choices and stuff as well. I did a recent video where I showed you guys like my favorite mesh systems. Granted, this should definitely be on that. If this is not on that list, this should be on that list. The ASUS BT10 is a beast. Yeah, so the other thing is, should I get a Wi-Fi 7 mesh system, or should I get Wi-Fi 6, or should I get Wi-Fi 6E, or stick with Wi-Fi 5? So that's another one where it depends. A lot of the routers, pretty much almost all the routers, depends on your specific situation. Like, for example, this XC70 Pro is fantastic, but it's not the right router for me because this thing has a 2.5 gigabit port and the rest are gigabit ports. So if my internet comes in at 5, I'm already being capped at 2.5. And as soon as it comes out of this to go to the other one, I am now capped at gigabit speed. So it's like I'm basically paying for 5 gig service to my ISP, my internet service provider, and by the time it gets to my computer, I'm at gigabit speeds. So obviously this router is not right for me. Is it a good mesh system? Yes, it's fantastic, but it's not the right one for me. For me, the right ones are like the beefier ones, like the ASUS BT10, the Orbi 970, the ASUS BQ16 Pro, the Deco BE85, the Deco BE95. Those are the ones that are basically good for me. So that's kind of, so you kind of like, it really depends on your situation. The other thing is too, like, I don't want to say like, oh, you should get the Netgear Orbi 970 because that's the best. And as of right now, as of this second, the Orbi 970 is my favorite mesh system. But it's also very expensive. So I only recommend it to people that are actually going to use it unless, you know, you have so much money that it doesn't matter, then sure. But it's almost like I'm not going to recommend someone get a pickup truck if you just need to like go get groceries once a week. Like you could just get like a normal car and it would do it just fine. You don't need like this beastie pickup truck But if you're like towing this huge trailer, then I could be like, well, you should probably get this beastie pickup truck because it could do that. So it's kind of like, I mean, that's not like the best analogy, but it's close enough that you guys kind of get the point that I, I want to recommend something that's like right for you. Unless you're planning on upgrading soon, that's kind of where you want to be, because there's always going to be newer and better routers coming out. At least that's been the trend. They're getting better, they're getting faster. Wireless backhaul is getting absurd, especially with Wi-Fi 7. They've gotten so much faster with wireless backhaul. It's like mind blowing how fast it is. And again, some of these videos like that I do with the wireless backhaul test, literally I could get 5 gigs download on wireless backhaul when I hook it up via Ethernet. It's like ridiculous on a wireless backhaul node, which is like, it's like 10 years later that's probably going to be standard, but right now it's like mind blowing. Um, so that gets to the, so should you get a Wi-Fi 7 system if, let's say, you don't have Wi-Fi 7 devices? I mean, that really depends on your situation. If you want to be on the leading edge of tech, that's a good choice. For wireless backhaul, I do recommend it because it's really, really good. If you have faster internet speeds, it's really, really good, especially for wireless backhaul for the upper speeds. So for that, it's really good. And I feel like if you get a Wi-Fi 7 mesh system, you should be good for a few years. Especially as phones are getting like the OnePlus 13, this thing is an absolute beast for Wi-Fi 7 mesh system speeds. The iPhone 16 Pro Max is not so much of a beast for Wi-Fi 7. I've done a separate video on that where I compare the speeds. And I just ordered the Galaxy S25 Ultra, which is supposed to be another Wi-Fi 7 system. So I'll do a speed test with that one as well. But as phones are getting faster and faster, it is kind of nice to have that, fast. Because on a network, things only work as fast as your slowest device. So it's whether it's your slowest port, whether it's your slowest device. So if you have this OnePlus 13 that at home, let's say I could get, like 3.8 gigabits down on an internet speed test, or 3.4 or 3.5. If I go to my parents' house, I'm only going to get like 480 with it. And that's because their internet speeds are capped and, they're right around 500. So that's kind of what I'm going to get. So it's good for future proofing. It's good for wireless backhaul. But like if you have to spend $1,000, I mean, these are less than that now. But like, I'm not going to say, oh, you should get $1,000 router instead of a $300 router, because, maybe you should get a $300 router now, as long as it's good enough for you, and then use that for like 3 years. And then the $1,000 one might be, $600. 3 years later, there might be a newer version. So it's kind of hard to say, but if you want to be on the leading edge in wireless backhaul, Wi-Fi 7 is good. All right, so let me read some more questions. Everything else works fine. Found out it's a common bug. Really? It's with the XC75? That's interesting. Everything else works. Got 4 total. And outdoor TP-Link forgot. Yeah, I think the outdoor one is called the X50 outdoor. I think it's called the X50. I actually have it, but I think it's the X50 outdoor. Deco XT75 been killer for me. I've seen 3 packs come down to 2. Yeah. So XT75, the Deco by TP-Link, that's been one of the best mesh systems for the price. It has really, really, really good wireless backhaul speeds. It's not as good as like the Asus GT6. Or the Asus XT9, or like these beastie Wi-Fi 7 ones, but for its price category, I can't even think of a mesh system that's better than that. The closest one is like the XC70 Pro, which is another Deco product. So basically there's that. But XC75 is fantastic. I'm just surprised that there's a problem with the port. Ubiquiti Wi-Fi 7. Some people have been asking me to do Ubiquiti. I haven't done it yet. I might do it in the future. I'm thinking about it, but I haven't received that many requests for it. Most of the requests that I get are TP-Link, Asus Netgear, and then like the Eros, and before I even get to the ear, like I usually do the Eros pretty early on, so I don't even. There's some requests, but by the time the requests are coming in, I'm already working on the video. Um, Asus gets a lot of requests, so a lot of people have been requesting the newer, more affordable Wi-Fi 7 systems, like I think the BD5, the BD4. So I'm gonna see if I could do those. But I have like three other Netgear routers that I gotta do. So I have the RS300, 5, and 600, and then I'm gonna do a comparison. So I have like a few other routers I gotta get to. Ubiquiti I might do, but as far as now, there's no plans right now as of this second. That could change. Yeah, it is I think it is the X50 outdoor, cause I remember that because they had the PX50, and then I did that one, which was the power line mesh system one, and then they had the X50 PoE, which was the power over Ethernet that you could kind of just mount. Um, but yeah, do you guys have any additional questions? I'm trying to think if there's anything oh yeah, I should mention this too. That's why I brought the XC70 Pro. So this black port right here, it's a little hard to see from the iPhone. Let's see if I could bring it closer. I'm actually recording on my iPhone right now. Okay, so this black port right here is the 2.5 gigabit port, and then these two are gigabit ports. Now all of these are auto sensing. Ignore the main sticker. That's just something I do just because I'm testing routers and stuff. So that helps me keep track which one I use as the main. Because you could use any one of the 2 or 3 pack as the main router and I'll be fine. But some of the routers have a 2.5 gigabit port and they have gigabit ports. So they only have like one fast port. So that's good and that's bad. The bad part is if you have internet speeds of 2.5 gigabits, let's say your internet speeds are 2 gigs. If you get an XC70 Pro, as soon as you go in at 2.5, you come out at 1. So you're going to be capped to gigabit speeds. So I don't recommend routers like this for like what I like is if you have at least two of the same port speeds. So if you have two 10 gigs, two 5 gigs, two 2.5 gigs, that way you're not going to lose any speed going in and coming out. However, if you have internet speeds of 2 gigs and all your devices are Wi-Fi, that's a different story, right? So if you just have like laptops that are on Wi-Fi, like a MacBook that doesn't even have an Ethernet port, granted you could get a USB adapter to Ethernet, but let's just say you just use a MacBook and it just works on Wi-Fi. Well, then this is fine because now you could get the 2.5 gigabit port, plug it in, you're not using any of the Ethernet devices, and you're fine. And then the other thing too is obviously it depends like, you might not have like maybe your Ethernet devices are gigabit port anyway, so it's fine for that too. Let's say you mainly use Wi-Fi devices, but you want your PS5 hooked up via Ethernet. Well, a PS5 is capped to gigabit speeds anyway, so it doesn't matter. But if you have a computer via Ethernet, let's say you have 2 gig speeds and you have a computer via Ethernet that can handle those speeds, I would recommend something that has the 2 fast ports. And one of the questions I've been getting asked, not a lot, but I did get asked a few times was, oh, should I get the Deco BE25 or the Deco XC75 Pro or the Deco XC70 Pro? And my and it's funny because like my answer is always like I can't give a direct answer, so I say like for this scenario use this, for this scenario use that. And the reason is because the wireless backhaul on the XC75 Pro is actually better. But the BE25, the wireless backhaul is okay. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. So I say for wired backhaul, get the Deco BE25 because you have two 2.5 gigabit ports. So you're not going to lose any of that speed. But for wireless backhaul, I would just get the XC75 Pro because it does actually have better wireless backhaul speeds. So it's always kind of like those questions that like I try to give more of a detailed response, like, oh, for this scenario I would use this, for this scenario you'd use that. That's why it's a little bit easier if I get a question that's like, oh, my internet speeds are this. My house is this big and I'm gonna run wired backhaul, like which mesh system do you think is good for around this price? And around the price, I could be like, well, like the Deco BE63 is a fantastic mesh system, but then there's like the Asus BT10 is better. So I mean, I could say like, oh, the Deco BE63 is fantastic for this price. And if you want something beefier with better wireless backhaul speeds, I'd get the Asus BT10. And that way I could give like, it's still a more of a detailed answer, but yeah. All right, so let's see. Yeah, that's it. Like anywhere near, like you have a bottleneck, you're done after that point. Do you recommend setting up individual SSIDs or one SSID? It depends which mesh system you're using. If it, I personally, um, I personally most of the time like one SSID. The only exception is that some mesh systems, if I connect to the 6 gigahertz band, I get crazy fast speeds. So with those, I do make a separate one just for the 6 gigahertz band. But the 2.4 and 5, I almost always combine. And most of the time, I combine the 2.45 and the 6. But once in a while, with some systems, I do like to isolate. Like with the new Asuses, there's a with the new Asus routers, by default, it comes with two SSIDs. One is the main SSID, and then the other one is an Internet of Things SSID. Um, and then the main SSID, the reason why they want to separate that is because they want to enable Wi-Fi 7. They want to make it faster, WPA3 for encryption, which not a lot of devices can support yet, as of now. So basically, I create that, and then I just connect my my super fast devices like the OnePlus 13, like the Galaxy S24 Ultra, which I'm getting the S25 Ultra soon. Those devices I connect to that, and then everything else kind of goes to the 2.4 and 5 basically. Um, and with ASUS, I actually delete their IoT and I just make a separate guest network, and then I give that guest network access to the main network. So it's kind of like having two main SSIDs in a way. Um, and I switch a lot of routers. So the other thing is I test so many routers, I'm constantly switching them. So I try to make one SSID just because that makes my life easier. Um, because some of the brands, they only have one SSID. So if I have two SSIDs, unless for the phones, because the phones can have some in memory. But my IoT devices, I literally have to program it, not program it, but change its settings to basically go to the new one. So I try to keep them all on the same. So as I'm switching through routers, they just automatically connect. So yeah. So really, if I made two SSIDs, the second one would only be really for performance only for me. And that's been fine for me. That's why I haven't really even tried to change it, because it's just been working great. Okay, yeah, the Deco B85s, those are beasts, especially on wireless backhaul. That's one of the first Wi-Fi 7 mesh systems that I tested, if not the first one. And it kind of blew me away how fast wireless backhaul speeds was on that. It was ridiculously fast. That's beastie. Um, so with the Deco, you have, if I remember correctly, because again, it's hard to remember when there's like 800 routers. I'm exaggerating a bit, but the Deco, I think there's a separate MLO network you can make. There's a separate IoT one you can make. There's a separate guest one you can make. There's a separate main one you can make. With the Deco, I think I just make the main one. I make a guest one for guests, so the guest one's always available, but that's just for guests to connect to. Um, and I think was it the Deco that had the separate 6 gigahertz one, or I used the MLO as a 6 gigahertz one. With the Deco, I might actually do that. I might actually do that just so I could get the faster speeds from the other one. So with the B85, I probably would do that. I probably would make it too. So okay, so Cold Shot asked, does the TP Link allow you to have one SSID for the 2 and 5 and then 6 gigahertz? Are you saying a separate one for the 2.4 and a separate one for the 5 and a separate one for the 6? Or you're saying a separate one for the 2.4 and 5 and a separate one for the 6? Because you could for sure make a separate one for the 2.4 and 5 as one, and then make a separate one for the 6. You can also, oh, I'm trying to remember, but you can also, for the main one, you could turn off either the 5 or the 2.4, but I don't know if you can make another one just for that one. And then the decals actually, some decals give you more options than others, just like with ASUS. Like if you get the gaming ASUS routers, there's additional options, especially like game boost mode, or if you want to change the colors and stuff like that. And there's like some additional options, gaming ports and stuff like that. TP-Link is the same, where they have additional options depending on the router you're choosing. But most of the TP-Links, the 2.4 and 5 is connected, and then sometimes they allow you to separate the 6. Sometimes you're forced to separate out the 6. Sometimes you can't combine the 2.4, 5, and 6 to each other. You have to make a separate 6 GHz band for some of them. So it really depends which model you're talking about. But I guess you could make a separate, your main one could be a 5 gigahertz. You can make an IoT that's just for 2.4, and then you can make a separate one for the 6 or the MLO one if you get one of the Wi-Fi 7, the better ones. Hopefully that answers your questions. It really depends on the specific one. So in my videos, they're all very similar style. That way, if you want to skip around, you can. I usually do the same tests and everything. And I like to show the apps. Now, sometimes when I show the apps, some people ask me like, why are you showing us the default settings? And that's not my intention to show you guys the default settings. My intention is to show you them as these are your options. And so I try with almost all the routers that I do, at least as of the last few years, I can't think of one where I didn't show the app. But I show you guys the app, and when I show the app, sometimes I don't show every little option. But I do try to show the main options, and the main options being, I do try to show you the SSID options. So with the specific deco, like if you're looking for a specific deco, like let's say you're looking at the BE85. I was gonna say BE75, but I haven't reviewed that one yet. But let's say if you're looking at the BE85, you can click on the BE85 video, and if you want, you could skip to the deco app portion of it, and I will show you guys what your options are. And it's kind of just overlaid while I'm talking about it. And it's not always synced. In fact, most of the time I pre-recorded it, and then I turn off the router and bring it here so I talk about it. So I don't do it live. But I do typically show you guys the SSIDs just to show you guys these are your options. And then there's VPN options. And sometimes I show the browser interface ones. With TP-Links, I typically don't. Sometimes with the Archers I do, but with TP-Link, it's just the Deco app that I show. But like with ASUS, sometimes I show the app and the web interface, because ASUS, oh my God. If you want to separate out SSIDs, ASUS is your router. ASUS has so many options. It's almost ridiculous how many options there are to customize. Okay, Pixel 9, but I heard online that most people only, yeah, okay, so I think the reason why the Pixel 8, so I had the Pixel 8, the 8 Pro, I also got the Pixel 9 Pro XL, and I did Wi-Fi 7 speed tests. I have videos on these where I actually compare the phones to each other. So if you literally type in Pixel 9 Pro XL in my channel, you'll see it. And you'll see I'm doing a speed test. So, water break. I think, like, I'm not 100% sure, but I think they don't support the 320 megahertz channel width. So the Pixels, they can't get faster than 1.7, 1.8, maybe 1.9. I can't remember because it's been a while. But definitely it gets nowhere near what these two get. These two are very fast. Samsung, their Wi-Fi 7 is real. And I say real because when you actually do a speed test, like you're actually getting those crazy fast speeds. And OnePlus 13, OnePlus 13 has been amazing for Wi-Fi 7. This thing has been an absolute beast of a phone. And I recently did a video with the OnePlus 13 and the iPhone 16 Pro Max, and the OnePlus 13 is way faster. And I try to say, I say in the video that, you know, like because on the iPhone I think I was getting like 1.6, 1.7 down, whereas on this I was getting, I don't know, like 3.4, 3.5 ups down, something like that. So in the video I'm like, look, the 1.6 is still very, very fast. You could pretty much do just about anything you want on this with these speeds. However, with the OnePlus, you're actually getting that like absurd fast Wi-Fi 7 speed. So, and in most of the videos, I try to say like, hey, if you have an iPhone and you get this Asus or whatever router, and you're doing a speed test, and you're like, how is this guy getting like 3 gigs and I'm getting 1.6? It's the phone. It's not the router. That's why I try to say it. I don't say it enough for the Pixel, but the Pixel 8, the 8 Pro, which were Wi-Fi 7 devices, the Pixel 9 is a Wi-Fi 7 device as well. When I've done, I specifically tested the 9 Pro XL. But when I do speed tests with those, nowhere near what these two can get. Nowhere near. So as of now, from the phones that I've tested, I'm not MKBHD that I've tested every single phone out, but I do test Samsung, OnePlus, Pixels, and iPhones typically. And from those four, the OnePlus and the Samsung can get to the fast. I'll try the S25 Ultra. I'm assuming it will because the S24 Ultra does. And again, I have a video on the S24 Ultra as well. So again, iPhone 16 Pro Max, Pixel, latest Pixels, Wi-Fi 7 devices, they must be Wi-Fi 7, but they're not getting those crazy fast speeds. Okay, so after using Eero for 2 years, I can say without a doubt it's the best router on the market. Might not be the fastest, but it's mostly, yeah. Okay, so I agree with you. Eero is, I mean, I don't know if it's the most stable, but I ran an Eero Pro 6. I think it was the Pro 6 that I ran. I've tested all the Eeros I tested the Eero 6, Pro 6, 6 Plus, Pro 6C, and the Max 7. I ran the Eero Pro 6 for some time, and it was uber stable. And I recommended that to family and friends, and they bought it, and it's been stable for them. In fact, I have family right now that bought the Pro 6. I don't know when it was, 2-3 years ago, and it's still super stable. I asked them, like, how's it going? They're like, it's stable. It's not the fastest, but it's very stable. Yeah, well, we'll see if the 17 iPhone 17 Pro Max or whatever it is, if it has the 320 megahertz channel width. All right, wired backhaul, you got the B85 AT&T gig service. I got, okay, 1.2 down, 1.2 up. Yeah, so the 15 Pro Max on the iPhone is a Wi-Fi 6E device, and I traded in the 15 for the 16, and they were both basically around the same speed. So with the 15 Pro Max, you could get to like 1.6, 1.7 down. So I'm not surprised at all that you're getting 1.2. So I'm sure if you got the iPhone 16 Pro Max, you would still be getting the 1.2 speeds, but it's fantastic. I will say for the iPhone, it's funny too though, because sometimes I make videos, like I made a video with the streaming devices, and no matter what I say, like some people are just gonna like not like it. So for instance, like I like the Apple TV the best, even over the Nvidia Shield, and I like the Nvidia Shield, but I just like the Apple TV more. And people are just like, oh, okay, this guy's like an Apple fanboy. And then I'm like, well, you should watch my OnePlus video, because I'm like, clearly this is much better for Wi-Fi speeds. So I try to be as unbiased as possible, but in that video, if I said Nvidia Shield was the best, which again, in my opinion, Apple TV is the best as of now, then you would have people like, oh, like Apple was great, it got fast speeds, it was really smooth, and he still didn't pick it. Like he's this, he likes Android. So it's like there's no winning. But I read the comments sometimes and I'm like, come on guys. But most of the comments are really good. Most of the comments are really good questions, so I genuinely enjoy them. It's just that once in a while you get that. Okay, wired backhaul. Okay. So with that, Um, okay, so I actually did. So I did a whole bunch of Ethernet cable testing. I spent a lot of money buying Ethernet cables. I spent like a lot of money buying Ethernet cables because I did a short Ethernet cable test and I was genuinely surprised. Um, but for short speeds, apparently it doesn't matter. Because I got 10 gigs out of a Cat 5 cable that I've had for I don't know how long, like 15 years. Like I was cleaning up some stuff and I saw a Cat 5 cable. I'm like, oh my God, I actually have Cat 5. So I'm like, let me just test it because I have 10 gig hardware now. Let me just do a speed test. And for a short cable, it actually got 10 gigs. And I was genuinely surprised. Some people actually knew. They were like, yeah, I've been doing that at, like for short cables, doesn't matter. I didn't know that. So it was surprising to me. And then people were like, oh, you need to get longer cables. So then I started getting longer cables. Granted, I couldn't get Cat 5. But to answer your question, Cat 6 or Cat 6A, like 100 feet or less, there's no difference from the speed test that I ran. Um, at the 300-foot mark, the only cable I ran Cat 5e, Cat 6, Cat 6a, Cat 7, and Cat 8 at 300 feet. The only cable, 300 feet, which is like 91.4 meters, I think. It's like 91 meters basically. The only cable that got just about those full 10 gigs was the Cat 6a. I actually got surprised that the Cat 7 and Cat 8 didn't get to 10 gigs. And then some people said, especially for the Cat 8, that you need to shield it and you need to have like this other hardware that can run it at 2000 megahertz but I'm like, I'm just using normal stuff. I'm not doing anything crazy. I genuinely just want to know. You guys were asking me to make the videos. I made the videos. And that's the other thing too. I try to read the comments. If I get enough of requests, then I'm like, okay, I'll buy it or I'll get it or whatever, and then I'll make the review for it. So if you guys have requests, don't be shy. Please let me know. Like if I get a bunch of requests for Ubiquiti, I will do the review. If I don't get a bunch, I might be like, okay, well, I got to do these. I'm getting more requests for these. So I'm just like a one-man show. I film, edit, post, everything. So I try to I try to do the videos that I think it's going to be most useful, basically. But to answer your question, Cat 6 or Cat 6A, up to 100 feet, I didn't see a difference. So just, I don't know, I guess get the one that costs less, which I'm assuming is Cat 6. Unless you want to get Cat 6A, but totally up to you. Okay, yeah, okay, that's what I was wondering. Do you plan to make similar comparisons with different Okay, so I'm not in the fiber cable world. The fiber cables that I've used has been with HDMI ports. I think the company is Rui Pro. They make really good cables for fiber optics. So if you're running long cables for HDMI, like 30, 50 feet, something like that, um, those are the cables I use. But for for I was like for Ethernet, but I should say for the network. I imagine fiber cables are super fast, so I don't I don't plan on doing it. I don't have a lot of fiber stuff. I mean, my internet's fiber ONT. I have no ONT because I have fiber internet. I have a switch that can accept on uh, the what's that called? SF SFP plus. I'm trying to remember all these terms. But no, I don't plan on doing fiber yet. I might do it in the future again if I get enough requests, but not right now. All right, so you have basic knowledge on routers about the new. Now, oh, okay. Well, you bought my favorite mesh system, the 970. I have a block house. Thoughts on how they work around concrete and coverage for a second level house? When you say second level, do you mean second floor? I'm assuming you mean second floor, not like a separate not like a separate house. Um, so the Orbi 970 has very good wireless backhaul speeds. If you don't get good speeds on that, it's hard for me to recommend another router that will get better speeds than that. The only other router on the top of my mind, the router that got the best wireless backhaul speeds was the TP-Link Deco BE95. From all the ones that I've tested, that one had the strongest wireless backhaul speeds. But the Orbi 970, like if you're not getting signal with the Orbi 970, it's like tough to beat that. If you bought something that costs less, like this one, the XC70 Pro, and you just weren't getting that, I would be like, yeah, you need to step up to like the better mesh system, basically. But I it's just I don't have concrete walls. Like my walls are drywall. There's wall studs and stuff, so it goes through no issue. Concrete walls, ugh. But I mean, you're on the right track. Like you got a beastie mesh system. I would try that. You can also, if you don't want to run Ethernet, obviously. I mean, it sounds like you don't. That's why you got like the beastie mesh system. Try it out. They also have Mocha adapters, Mocha MOCA. They have like Mocha 2.5, and it can actually put out up to 2.5 gigabit speeds over coax. So if you have coax cables in the walls, and it depends on like how good of a condition those cables are in and stuff. If you have the right splitters, so. But you could, in theory, go up to 2.5 gigabits with the Mocha adapter. I've reviewed the Asus MA25. If you search, you'll see a Asus Mocha 2. If you search my channel for Mocha 2.5, I show you guys the speeds. All right, I'm running out of water. I gotta open up a Pellegrino. I would just try the Orbi 970 because you're already on the right track. I know one of my family relatives is running the Orbi 960, which is a Wi-Fi 6E mesh. That was basically the best one until the 970 came out, but the best one for the Wi-Fi 6E world. And he lives in a pretty big house, and the 960 is like amazing. But there's not a whole lot of concrete in his house either. So unfortunately, yeah, just try it. I would start off like maybe put one here, and then one like directly above it on the floor, and then start playing with it. But I mean, you're on the right track. Your 45 unit apartment shares Wi-Fi? Wow. Wow. Can I bridge router without entering the office to hardware to my Fire TV? What do you mean bridge router without entering the office to hardware? You mean expand the Ethernet port? I don't, because bridge usually means like if you're disabling the router when you put it in bridge mode. If you're talking about expanding Ethernet ports, you would just use the switch. So the Ethernet that's coming, you could connect it to a switch, or they have extenders that, it's not going to be the best though, but they have extenders that can tap into that Wi-Fi network. So if you have the info for that, it could tap in, and then from that you can actually go to an Ethernet and then plug that in. So that's probably, it's not going to be the best. It's probably not going to be the best solution though. So J Viking, it's not going to be the best solution, just as a heads up. Okay, can I ask you about something? Nobody talks about buying 2 or 3 Easy Mesh would be cheaper than one mesh kit. Does it work worse? Okay. So Easy Mesh, I'm assuming you're talking about TP-Link Archers. I don't know if it's better or worse. It might be better, it might be worse, it might be the same. The only reason I like a mesh system is like a Deco over an Archer is because it's designed together. It's designed to work with each other. An Archer is designed first as a standalone router. Because this Easy Mesh thing, they didn't have that. If I remember correctly, they didn't have that like 2 years ago. With the Archer routers, like you couldn't connect them to each other, from what I remember. And then they came out with it, so I guess they got enough requests. And it makes sense because Asus has had AI Mesh for, I don't know how long, like 10, 15 years or something. Someone correct me, but they've had AI Mesh for a long, long, long time. Easy Mesh, as far as from what I remember, it's only been out for like 2 years or something like that. So I'm sure it works great. I personally haven't tested Easy Mesh. It has the option. I see it in there. It's in the app. Like you could added in there, I'm sure it's fine. I just personally like the Deco because it's literally designed for that. It's kind of like, the best analogy I could give is like, you could buy a pickup truck to tow a trailer. I'm saying the word wrong. Or you could buy an SUV, and an SUV can also tow it. But an SUV is like kind of less made for that. It's more like the pickup truck is kind of more designed for that rather than an SUV, even though it's kind of like pretty similar. So I can't say because I haven't tested that. But a long time ago, I was running ASUS AI Mesh and it was fine. Um, Before mesh systems were getting popular, it was working fine. So it's it's probably going to be similar, but it's not going to be like 100%. Um, all right, so I'm gonna answer these questions and I'm gonna wrap up in like either if I first finish the questions or if you guys have more. But I gotta wrap up in like 5 minutes at the most. Okay. I just got a Pixel 9. Is it worth using MLO? It's also my only. Okay, so I don't. So Pixel 9 does support Wi-Fi 7. However, just like the iPhone 16 Pro Max or the iPhone 16 Pro, it it doesn't get those crazy fast Wi-Fi 7 speeds. And I've done this in a separate video. You can search my channel for Pixel 9 Pro XL. I know you said Pixel 9, but I think it's the same chip inside. Um, I can't remember what the fastest speed was on that. So I will just answer your question with saying it doesn't matter if you use MLO or not, because even if you connect to the 6 gigahertz band, you should be fine. I don't see, yeah, I don't really see a big advantage of connecting to MLO over connecting to the 6 gigahertz band. I think both of them you could get right around the same speeds. I would test it, but from what I remember, I think it's around the same speed. So it doesn't really matter if you make an MLO or not, assuming it is using the 6 gigahertz band, which the Pixel 9 can do. Okay. Yeah, that is crazy. 45 units. Um, Also, Mercusys are cheap and good and compatible. I don't know what Mercusys is. I haven't heard of that. Is that like a brand or something? I haven't heard of that. I'm only speaking about budget perspective. I spent around 60 euros and I got one MR. So yeah, okay, sounds like a router and two MR. Got pretty good results. Yeah, so that's the other thing. Again, I haven't tried Mercusys. I think the budget brand that I tested, other than TP-Link, is, and TP-Link has some beastie routers now. I think it was Tenda, and that one actually was surprisingly pretty good. Um, Ray routers standalone were also pretty good for the price. They had really good range. That's what I remember from the Ray routers. And then I tested this other brand a long time ago. I think it was like Vilo or something. I can't remember. It's been a long time. And that one had really good speeds, but that one I think it would like drop the connection a lot. Like it would drop it like a few times a day. And that was like a super budget system. Um, but if you're running wired and you want like a budget system, um, you have a few choices. If you're running wired backhaul, like Eero's really good, like the 6 Plus, like this one. This one's really good, up to gig speeds. The Decos are really good. And then I haven't tried the newest Asus ones for the budget end, but the older Asus ones were also really good. And I haven't tried the tiny Netgear Nighthawks. I'm assuming those are good, but no idea. I've tried the more powerful Netgear ones, so the powerful Netgear ones are good. But I will say this: the Nighthawk, this RS200, I mentioned this in the video. It wouldn't let me pick my same Wi-Fi name and password. For some reason, it didn't like it. But the speeds on this were actually really good for the retail price in the U.S. I don't know how much it costs elsewhere, but in the U.S., forget what it retailed for, like 220, which is not like super. I mean, it's pretty for a Wi-Fi 7 router. That's budget. I would say. Okay. Okay. Great info on SSID. Yeah. Testing easy. Oh, I see. I've considered doing an easy mesh comparison and an AI mesh comparison. But I haven't received too many requests for it. Um, I mean, I have the routers, I could do it. I just haven't received too many requests, and I have a lot of other videos I got to get to. For the ones that I get more requests. So I try to I try to get feedback from you guys to see like which router is good, which router is not as good. Um, but I try to do the ones that are like the Ethernet ones. Like I can't remember how much I spent. Like I'm estimating here, but I spent like $800 on Ethernet cables just because I got so many requests. I got like almost an absurd amount of requests, and I was like, wow, like I wasn't expecting that many requests. That's why I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and I made Ethernet video after Ethernet video after Ethernet video because I saw I'm like, okay, there's a lot of requests coming in. So I pay attention. So that's why it's important to comment, because if you're thinking something and you're like, okay, I see 2 requests on it, 2 is, I don't think two, unless it's like super popular I had it in mind, but 2 is for something like that I don't plan on doing, 2 is probably not going to be enough requests for me to say, okay, I'm going to do it. So if you guys have suggestions, also write your comments because I don't know what you're thinking basically. Okay, wow, thank you for that, Fluoro7. Um, let me. You're a big part of my research and buying decision making. Bought a 10-piece deck. Wow, you bought a 10-piece system? Wow, I that is crazy. 8 inside, 3 out. I was like earlier I was saying 5 or 6 should be the limit. Wow, you bought an 8. Wow. 11 11. Wow. Wow. That's impressive. Okay, 6,000 square foot house. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. Okay, so you have a big place. Drop in using, yeah. Okay, sounds like I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Oh yeah, it's definitely better than Linksys, 100%. Yeah. All right, I gotta wrap up. I'm gonna see if there's any other questions. Okay, so I just wired it with concrete and floors with Cat 6 fantastic. Going full Ubiquiti was rather expensive, and I still had the Synology. I haven't tried the Synology one. Um, yeah, Ubiquiti. I've heard good things about Ubiquiti, but if I get enough requests, I will do Ubiquiti. So if you guys want me to, eh, yeah, I did spend like $800 on cables. I mean, it's it's ridiculous. I have a lot of cables. um, okay, you have 5 pieces. Okay, wow. Yeah, I've never heard of 11. That is a first. Never heard of 11. That's fantastic. Okay, so if you guys like these types of videos, I could try to go more live. I try to read some of the questions, and if I get enough of the same questions, I try to talk about it. It doesn't have to be with routers; it could be with other stuff as well. Um, so yeah, if you guys like this, I could do more of these. I'm I'm trying to see what people like, and I'm trying to like kind of work towards that just to kind of fill in the requests. So again, if you guys like something, let me know in the comment sections. Otherwise, I'm not going to know what you guys like. But I appreciate you guys watching the live stream. This video will be up. When I stop, it'll just be live. You guys can watch it later if you guys want. And if you guys have questions or comments, leave in the comment sections below. I try my best to answer them. It's getting a little harder and harder because I'm getting more and more comments. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate all the support. Um, Thank you very much. I truly appreciate all the support. Again, if you guys have questions, comments, leave it in the comment sections below. And have a fantastic day. And I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.